Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the Easy Sorc. The Markarth update for this particular build is now stronger than ever. This can do solo, this can do group, this can do trials, this can do absolutely everything. Whether it's the base game or end game, it doesn't make any difference. This will fit into any group. It brings buffs and bonuses to your group as well in forms of crit bonuses. It can bring major berserk if you choose a certain ultimate. And not only that, it's got survival in terms of its resistances, and it's got survival in terms of its ability to heal. It's got single target and area of effect damage combined. Lots of different options for beginner all the way up to advanced, and this is still across the board easy to use. If you take this into any content, as long as you know what you're doing, you will not struggle in the slightest. This is the most successful all-round build in the entire game to date. If you want to see more of this, keep watching. Everything is going to be explained.
How did you do that? How did you do that?
So first of all, we're going to go into the stats. Pop a potion, make sure our buffs are running. Beautiful. So we are on 37.1k max Magicka. That does actually go up with certain set choices, but for now we're going to sit with this. 18.3k max health and 12.3k max stamina, which is very, very nice, especially if you're solo. And if you're not solo, if you're in big groups and stuff and you've got blocks and dodge rolls and all that good stuff to manage, you've got a lot more than most. 997 recovery, almost 1000 recovery there, flat out, with 494 health recovery alongside 822 stam recovery. We're on 3k spell damage. That does go up a considerable amount with our buffs and bonuses and with another set option. And our crit is looking at 49.7, but it's actually, in content, 55.8. We are on, resistance fell off, whoops, 18.9k spell resistance and 16.4k physical resistance. Our resistances are actually huge for a DPS alongside of our high health pool. Very nice indeed. 64 points into max Magicka. We don't need them anywhere else. We are using max health, max Magicka food, the flat stuff. Now, it says 0-0 here because it's a visual bug in the text, but we do actually have 5,000 max health and not far short of a 5,000 max Magicka. It's actually, we'll put it in here actually, I'll show you. It is 5395 max health and 4936 max Magicka. So they're very nice stats there. And of course, we're using the Shadow Munderstone. Now, if you do want to be a vampire, that's absolutely fine. You don't need any of the abilities whatsoever, but in some content, you might want to sneak faster, i.e. March of Sacrifices. If you want that passive, you are going to have to go stage 1. Other than that, don't bother with it at all. It's not worth it. Now, we're going to go into the skills. All of these are going to be explained. I'm going to tell you where they come from, how to morph them, what to, and what they do and why. All that is going to be here. So if you do skip this, obviously it's at your own risk. You won't understand the build, but stand by. It's all coming. So, first off is Summon Twilight Tormentor. This is in the Daedric Summoning skill line. It is the third ability you unlock. Starts off as Summon Winged Twilight, morph it to Tormentor. The other one is a heal, not damage. This will actually do shock damage to the target of your choice. So if you heavy attack it, it will hit it. Or if it's the only one in the room, it will hit it anyway as long as you're in combat. And it will do this over time. So, obviously, during its uptime, it will just constantly hit and hit and hit until the target is dead or until you deactivate this particular ability. You can do that in your character sheet, by the way. Go in, press square, or just remove it. It's gone. But you'll have to recast it. Now, this pet has to be double barred. Both bars. Because if you don't, when you switch bars, it will die. You have to have it on your bar for it to be here. And if you activate the skill while it is already active, it doesn't take a 1.5 second cast time. That is just to spawn the pet. While it's up, the whole time, anytime you activate it, you'll have an insta-cast ability that will increase its damage. Now, it will cost you magic to do this, but the damage increased to the target it's hitting goes up by 53%, but only if they are above 50% health. And that's a 15-second duration. So you activate it, the pet is stronger, then it runs out, you activate it again, the pet is stronger, and so on and so forth. But any time an enemy is under 50%, stop casting it and let it just do its passive damage, because you won't get the extra, and it's a waste of magic. Now, next up is Daedric Tomb. This is in the Dark Magic skill line. 5th ability to unlock, starts off as Mines, morph it to Tomb. Now, this is unlike the other morph. Cast where you want it to go, up to 28 meters away. The other one will go straight under your feet. This one can go where you want it. So you will need a little bit of target practice with this. This will place 3 mines on the ground. Anything that touches the mine will blow up. However, you can, if you're good at aiming, and it doesn't take that long to practice it, aim this kind of between any target's legs, whether they're tiny, tiny, tiny targets or absolutely massive dragon. Doesn't make a difference. As long as you can aim it correctly, you can always make 2 mines go off at once, which is extremely strong. The single target damage of each mine is enough for most spammables. We can make 2 go off at a time. And if you are clever, note, your tank needs to be good at this too. Some content, you can actually put ads or bosses in corners or near scenery or up against the wall or whatever, and if they are in a certain vicinity of that particular hitbox of the object, you can place the mines kind of on the wall. You can aim it in that direction. Now, it won't go through the wall, sure, but the 2 mines will land on the floor, and one of them will be stuck on the wall, and all 3, because they're so close, can actually blow up at once. I've demonstrated this many, many times before. There's still salty people out there shouting how cheesy it is, but trust me, it works in content. It's supposed to land on objects. It's supposed to land on the ground or things that have a collision box. So if you can utilize the scenery around you to your advantage, then you will get the most out of it. However, that's not massively important. The most thing that is important is that this is an expensive spammable that we can sustain with, because we do have heavy attacks in our rotation, whereas most people can't sustain it. And if you're good at it, you can make 2 go off all the time instead of 1. If you make 1 go off, it's not the end of the world. If you make 2 go off, you're doing a lot more damage. Also, bear in mind, while this is down on the ground, if only one of them goes off, an ad could run into another one, which is already down on the ground, and blow up. They stay on the ground for 30 seconds unless you recast it or they explode. So sometimes you can put this down under the target as a cast it, cast another one, cast another one, cast another one, or you can put it down and just wait for stuff to walk into it. It's got multiple different bonuses to this kind of playstyle. But also, at the same time, this immobilizes targets. Now, there's lots of people out there trying to damn the setup itself because they fully don't understand it, but they want excuses. And they're like, oh, this stuns targets, so I can't chain it. No, it does not. Read very carefully. It says immobilizes. It plants their feet. You can still chain immobilized targets, because immobilization is a route and chain works as a stun as far as CC is concerned. So if something does get pinned on the ground, it's just controlled on that spot. You can still chain it in. I will demonstrate this more when it comes to the rotation and how to utilize this, but this is a very, very powerful skill, but be very careful with your sustain. There are situations where you can spam it, and there's situations where you need to heavy attack. Again, that will be explained in a rotation, don't worry. Next up is Hardened Ward. This is in our Daedric Summoning skill line. Fourth ability unlock, actually. Starts off as Conjured Ward, morph it to Hardened Ward. I believe it used to be third. Long time ago. That's not important right now. This is a damage shield. You do 11k damage shield for 6 seconds, and basically any damage you take will be sucked up by the shield before it hits your health. This will also be capped at 60% of your max health, so obviously the higher your health, the stronger the shield, but you do need high magic pool to push its base. So in a trial situation, if you have Ebon, you have minor toughness and all that good stuff, this can actually go up to about a 12 to 13k shield. Really, really nice indeed. But this is your oh shit button. Basically, if you're in trouble, put on a damage shield, you take less damage because it's got to hit this first. Sometimes you might just want to leave a wall of elements on the ground and just heavy attack, shield, heavy attack, shield. It depends whether you're in a situation where you have to or not. This is your protective skill. Now, Inner Light is here for no reason other than passives. It gives you 5% increase to max magic across the board, and also gives you Major Prophecy, increasing your crit spell rating by 2, 6, 2, 9. Very simple, leave it on your bar. Now, this is in the Mage's Guild skill line. You do need Mage's Guild level 2 for this. Starts off as Mage Light, morph it to Inner Light. Very simple, don't touch it. There are passives here that are going to be very important for later on, but again, we'll go over those after the skills have been explained, because I do passives straight after. This is a flex slot. Now, if you are very good with mines, maybe you've had a couple of hours practice and you think you got it now. If you're good with those, then you can put on Bound Aegis, because during execute, this is stupidly strong if you can still keep up those 2 mines. If you can only ever do 1, then you want to change it. But for argument's sake, let's just say you can always consistently or most of the time make 2 pop at a time because you're quite good at it. Then, of course, Bound Aegis can go on your bar. This is in the Daedric Summoning skill line. 5th ability to unlock starts off as Bound Armor, morph it to Bound Aegis. This will give you increase of 8% max Magicka while being on your bar, and Minor Resolve all the time, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 2, 9, 7, 4. We have really good resistances, and this is a passive bonus. No, we're not double barring it, so be careful not to get caught on your back one, but this is really handy. You never have to activate it, but if you do get in a situation where you have to block something really, really big, if you activate this first, you will gain 40% block mitigation. So technically you can tank in some situations if something goes wrong. So this is a buffer to your max Magicka, this is a buffer to your resistances, and you've got a block mitigation bonus just in case you need it. Now, if you are not that agile or adept in content, your mines are not very well aimed at the moment and you still need some practice, and you can't really gauge whether you're in trouble or not, and this block mitigation bonus isn't going to make a shit's bit of difference, then of course what you can do instead is you can change this out to Mage's Wrath, which is in the Stormcalling skill line, starts off as Mage's Fury, morph it to Mage's Wrath. This is very simple. You hit the target with it if they're below 20% health, and they explode in lightning and area of effect other enemies as well. This is your main execute. If you've got lots of small targets, or even if it's a big target and you want to use this, it's absolutely fine. But if you apply it before 20% health, then of course it won't explode and it will put a 4-second timer on them. Now if they dip below 20% during that timer, it will pop. If not, then it won't. And it will do less damage, obviously. It will just do the first part of the skill, not the second part. So effectively, you want to make sure this is under 20% health before you use it, if you can. Now, when I say this is for less advanced players, this is a very healthy execute, use it all day long, sure. But this, if you do 2 mines consistently instead of 1, will outperform this. So while this is an execute, and while this isn't, this does do more damage. So it depends on how well you approach this particular build. For beginners, I would keep on this. And sometimes for some solo stuff, depending on whether you're trying to get rid of small targets or not, it depends. And for more advanced people, keep this on. It's one less skill you have to cast as well. You just stick to this one instead of having a combination of the two. Next up is Summon Charged Atronach. Now this is actually a choice. I tend to not have this so much on the front bar, so what I will do is I will explain both front and back bar ultimates. I tend to have Suppression Field on the front bar. Now, as far as passives are concerned, it makes no difference. But here's why. Suppression Field on the front bar, Atronach on the back bar, or the Destro ulti. Suppression Field, first of all, is Negate Magic in Dark Magic skill line and morph it to Suppression Field. The other version is a heal. This will put a big dome on the ground. This is your oh shit button. Now this will stun everyone inside of this for 12 seconds, which is enormous, a massive, massive stun. And every enemy inside of this will also take damage every 0.5 seconds, so it's a rapid fire and damage over time as well. On the back bar, you've got 2 choices, like I just said. Stormcalling, first of all, you've got the, not Stormcalling, Daedric Summoning, you've got the Summon Storm Atronach, which you want to change to Charged Atronach, because this one actually does have a big area of effect zap as well, which will do damage and area of effect, of course. And if anyone activates a synergy from this, they get Major Berserk, increasing their damage and the Atronach's damage. So if you are out in the middle of nowhere and there's one of these and no one can take the synergy, even if you're the tank, okay, because I've seen people complain about this for stupid reasons, even if you're the tank, it's not a waste of a synergy. You take the synergy, you get 4% resources back with your Undaunted passive, happy days, and you apply Major Berserk to the pet. So it's not a negative. If no one else can get to it, you can still activate this and give the Sorc that buff to their damage. Very nice indeed, regardless. Failing that, you do get Major Berserk for picking the synergy up, so it's win-win. If you're a DPS, you get extra damage and so does the pet, whatever. Now, this does do damage over time. It does last a very long period of time. It does stun initially when it lands and all that good stuff. It's a very good single target, cheap ultimate to use. But if you want to absolutely wreck stuff in area of effect, that's when you want to put on Elemental Rage, which is from the Destruction Staff skill line. You get it at level 50 in this skill line, by the way. It starts off as Storm, morph it to Rage. You must morph it to Rage. The other one sticks to you and does less damage. This one you can place on the ground. Because we're using lightning damage, this does have a 2-second duration increase on the 7 seconds. So it actually lasts 9, not 7, and it does shock damage in massive area of effect. And every single target hit by lightning damage, by the way, just in case you didn't know, because it is coming, can have a chance to be concussed. Concussion is minor vulnerability, which means they take more damage, and you can turn that into off balance. However, we're going to get to that when we get to the other skills on this bar, which are now coming up. This is your area of effect annihilation ultimate, single target for the Storm Atronach, and Suppression Field for control. So, while talking about off balance, this needs to be double barred. Obviously, the pet needs to be double barred, so we skip that one. Unstable Wall of Storms. Destruction Staff skill line, second ability to unlock starts off as Wall of Elements, morph it to Unstable. Yes, the other version does last longer, but this one actually explodes when it finishes or when you recast it, so it's really, really nice. Now, the lightning form of this, if you're using a lightning staff, if an enemy is concussed inside of this wall, so any status effect that applies concussion from you or other people, when they're inside this wall, they will go off balance. Off balance is essential for this build, and pretty much for all content for most people anyway. In fact, all people. If a target is knocked off balance, they will be off balance for 7 seconds. All heavy attack damage done to them will be increased by 70%. All resource returns from heavy attack will be doubled. Now, this is very, very important because there is also a passive in the champion points which will increase people's damage while targets are off balance by 10%. So it's wobbling, everyone does more damage to it if they have their champion points spec that way. It's really, really important to have this, not just for your group, but especially for us, because we are utilizing heavy attacks so we can maintain our mines, which are very expensive. And if we're utilizing heavy attacks during off balance, the double resource return allows this to be much more usable. Now, if you do decide that you have enough off balance in your group, and that is already covered, you must make sure this is already covered. Don't just do it because you think it's going to work out, because you will suffer. You have to have off balance in your group for this build. If it is already covered, you can go with the flame staff on the back bar only. Now, if you do it on the back bar, this will change your wall of elements into unstable wall of fire, which will deal additional damage. 20% more damage, in fact, only on one condition. On the condition that the enemies inside the wall are burning. So flat out, no, it doesn't do more damage. But if they are burning, which they can get from this wall of elements as well, then you will do more damage with this skill. But we will get more into this when we get to the passives, because there is a very important thing to note about the wall on the back being fire and the front bar being lightning. Essentially, remember, concussion, inside wall of elements, if it's lightning, will knock things off balance. If you're covering it, great. If someone else is already doing it, change the flame. Boundless Storms is next. This is in the Storm Calling skill line. Oops, wrong button. Let's try again. This is the second ability, in fact, you unlock. Starts off as lightning form, morph it to Boundless Storms. Very simply put, this gives you a massive resistance buff. Major Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5948. That used to be 5280, it got buffed. When you activate it, you get speed boost for 4 seconds, which is quite helpful in some situations. Try not to spam it. But just for activating it in the first place, you have a 23-second buff. Your resistances are there all the time, and instead of just applying a resistance buff like most resistance buffs do, this will do area of effect damage to anyone close to you every 1 second in the form of shock damage. And yes, as we just went over, shock damage can cause concussion. It's a status effect chance, but the more lightning you have, the more likely you are to do it, the more off balance you will cover. Just bear in mind, of course, the off balance bonus is 7 seconds, the cooldown or immunity phase is 15. So every 22 seconds, you can guarantee 7 seconds uptime as long as you're on point with your concussion procs. This can fire it, so can this, so can your ulti. Now, keep this up at all times. This is going to be in your rotation because you are going to need it. Stay close to the enemy because you can with this build. Yes, of course, you can go back and go ranged if you have to, but the trick to this is to stay as close as possible. You have the resistances, you have the health, you are more likely to live than any stamina DPS up there because of the high amount of resistances you have and the amount of survival you have, and your survival is in the next skill. This is Critical Surge. Now, this is in a Storm Calling skill line. 4th ability to unlock starts off as Surge, morph it to Critical Surge. This will give you Major Sorcery and Major Brutality, so your physical and spell damage is up by 20%, and it lasts for 33 seconds. But during this time, while active, any critical damage that you do per second, so only 1 crit per second can count, will heal you for 3300, and yes, that can crit and scale off of healing received. So, any healing received bonuses that you gain from your group or having your own passives or champion points or whatever will buff this. You can actually heal sometimes in excess of 6 to 8k per second. Stupidly powerful. So you need to do damage. And what does this do while you're close to the target? This does damage. As long as you stay close, even if your other stuff isn't running, you can still heal off it as long as you get a crit. So if you're rezzing someone, make sure your resistance buff is running and you're next to an enemy, or make sure your wall of elements or something is hitting somebody so that you can constantly get this heal while picking them up. It's really, really powerful. So it buffs your damage and keeps you alive. This here is Lightning Flood. 3rd ability to unlock starts off as Lightning Splash, morph it to Lightning Flood. So this will do shock damage every 1 second for 10 seconds. Really, really nice. However, this does, again, have a chance to apply concussion. So concussion, concussion, concussion. Yes, the skill can double dip. It can make concussion and off balance at the same time. More concussion here if you're using the ultimate. You've got so much lightning damage happening here. It's going to happen. You are going to control off balance. Again, if you don't need to, because somebody else is already covering it, you can go Flame Staff, but your concussion procs from these skills will still contribute towards them pushing it. Now, this is just basically a ground-based damage over time. You can take a synergy from this if you're somebody else, not you. Someone else can take your synergy, and it will explode and do shock damage and every effect, but essentially keep this on the ground at all times alongside this. Your main 2 damage over time abilities must be down all the time as fillers for your spammable. That's it. 2 dots. Very simple. Been over the ultimate already. Let's move on to passives. So, Dark Magic first of all. You reduce the health, magicka, and stamina cost of all your abilities. Gonna need that. When you hit an enemy with a Dark Magic ability, you heal for 1838, and that can crit too. This scales off of your max health, so obviously the higher your health, the bigger the heal, and can occur once every 0.5 seconds. This is a Dark Magic skill. We're going to be using it all the time. You're going to heal off this skill, as well as healing off of this. Just bear in mind, of course, this is a bit of a flex slot. If you are in a very, let's call it an OPOP group, where you're basically sacrificing your survival because you are trusting someone else with your life, and you think they can heal you the whole time, and you don't need this. Extreme situation, I know. You can swap this for Inner Light, so that you can just double bar it for the max magic bonus and crit bonus on both bars. That's a choice, not a necessity. Also, you could switch to Barb Trap if you're not using one of the versions that we've got here. That is up to you. For the time being, though, for most situations, I would recommend putting Crit Surge on pretty much everything. Anyway, more passives. Do I do Dark Magic, all of them? No. Anyway, after blocking an attack, your next health, magic, or stamina ability that costs, obviously, resources will be cheaper. And if you use a Dark Magic ability, everyone in your group gets Minor Prophecy, increasing their crit rating by 1314 for 20 seconds. That's why at the beginning we had 49% crit, and now we have 55. This buffs your whole group with crit chance for spells. Very helpful indeed, and the easy way to apply this is our spammable does it for us. So this does damage, lots and lots of damage. It can be used to immobilize, it can apply a heal to you, and it applies a crit bonus to your entire group. Now, you restore 300 magicka or stamina when one of your non-ultimate Daedric summoning abilities ends. The resource returned is dictated by the ability's cost. So you actually get resources back for using these abilities. So if you use this because you need to block or whatever, once it runs out, you get stuff back. If you use a magic damage shield, you get stuff back. If you use your pet and the timer runs out, you get stuff back. So your resources are constantly flowing. You've got to get this. Reduce the cost of your ultimate abilities. Of course, you want to get the cost down, especially if you're using Death Royalty because it's normally quite expensive. This increases your health and stam recovery by 20%, so that helps because we do want the recovery on our stamina so that we can have a stam pool more often, or more controlled, if you like, so that we can actually dodge roll and break free and all that good stuff. Although this is in our potion as well, so it's not the end of the world if you don't have the passive, but you just have to have a Daedric summoning ability slotted. So if you are using, say, for example, different potions, you'll still get this bonus, and if you are using tripods like we are, then you got it all the time anyway. But we've got Daedric summoning abilities on our bar because we've got one here, one here, and here. We've double barred the pet anyway. You can't lose. You're always going to have this. This increases your max health by 8% if you have a pet active. As you can see, we do. That's why we have 18k health. Storm Calling is really important. This increases your mag recovery. That's helpful. We've almost got 1k mag recovery with flat food. Great. This increases your physical and shock damage. We are doing pretty much nothing but shock damage. A couple of magical damage abilities, sure, but mostly shock. Sorcerers have more shock damage than anybody else in the game. Increases your damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% health they have. So if they have 10% health, you do 1% extra damage. If they have 20% health, you do 2% extra damage. If they have 100% health, you do 10% more damage. Basically, you do 1% more damage for the more health they have. This is a reverse execute, if you like. You have more burst. And increases the weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability slotted. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this bar, so it's a 10% bonus. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 on this bar, unless you have the Storm Atronach, in which case you've got 10% on both bars. Really nice. So, Destro stuff, very, very important. Pay very close attention to this. Try focus. When you heavy attack with a shock staff, all nearby enemies will take 100% of the damage done. So they will mirror the damage you did on the main target. Your single target with a shock staff is equal in area of effect. No other weapon can do that. It's incredible. But bear in mind, your penetration bonuses, your spell damage, your max magical bonuses, or everything that contributes to your heavy attack will increase the base damage of the heavy attack to the highest it can possibly go to, depending on the situation at the time, including buffs and bonuses, of course. That damage is what will be replicated in area of effect. The crit damage you do will only affect the single target. So if you crit for 44k now, but the flat is, say, 20k, all enemies around will take 20k damage every tick, not the 44. But the single target will. So you'll always do more damage to the single target if you crit, but regardless of whether you do or don't, the rest will still take the flat. It's very, very strong. Your destruction staff abilities ignore 10% physical spell resistance even. So your light attacks, your heavy attacks, and your Destro skills, so your ultimate or your wall of elements, will actually do more damage because they will go through resistances. Increases your chance to apply elemental status effects. Lightning, frost, or fire, basically. Now, if we're using lightning, this enhances our chance while holding a Destro staff. You have to be holding one. It's no good backbarring it and having a sword and board on the front and expecting the same status effect chance. You won't get that. You have to hold the weapon to get it. So, we are using 2 Destro staves, so we're covered either way. But this will enhance your chances to apply concussion, which means more chance of applying off balance. If you concuss it, it's going off balance anyway, because that's what the wall of elements is for. Failing that, of course, if you are using a flame staff, of course, it heightens your chance to do burning status effects, which means your wall of elements will do more. Again, that is only a chance, but this does push it. Having a lightning staff equipped will increase the damage of area of effect abilities by 8%. Now, this is misunderstood by many, many people, but here are the facts. Most people assume this only increases damage if you have multiple enemies. Wrong. It increases the damage of any skill that is tagged as an area of effect skill. Your heavy attack from your lightning staff actually double dips on this because the splash damage is area of effect, so this will heighten it. This is not an area of effect skill. This lands on the ground as an area of effect skill, but it's direct. However, Wall of Elements is area of effect. Your Lightning Heavy is area of effect. Your Boundless Storms is area of effect. Your Liquid Flood, or Lightning Flood, in fact, is area of effect. Your Death Royalty is area of effect. So is your Suppression Field. Apart from one skill, everything we're using is area of effect. We are built to do as much area of effect damage as possible at the same time as doing a hell of a lot of single target. We can keep up with single target DPS, no trouble, but we have an abundance of area of effect, especially when you utilize your heavy between your spammables. It's very important to know. Now, something very important about the Flame Staff choice. As you can see here, area of effect abilities are stronger with a Lightning Staff. So while the Wall of Elements from the Flame is not stronger unless Burning Status Effect is applied, it will still count as an area of effect skill. So while you cast it with a Flame Staff, if you choose to, then get the increased damage from burning stuff, which is fine. When you're on your back bar, it will only do a set amount. When you're on your front bar, so when you swap over while it's active, you're now holding a lightning staff. You've now boosted that area of effect Wall of Elements by 8%. So if you're using a flame staff, make sure you get that dot down quick and get onto the front bar as soon as possible, because that's when you'll get the most out of it. Apply it with a flame, boost it with the lightning. Again, this is a double lightning build for the most part, but if you have off balance already covered, that is a situation in which you can use a flame staff on the back bar only for that skill, and perhaps even your ulti because it's a little bit stronger. That's very, very clear. I've had complaints about that kind of stuff all the time because people watch a screenshot for 3 seconds and assume they know it all. This is clearly explained. That is a choice. If off balance is covered, go flame on the back. If it's not covered, you bring the off balance. Now, when you do damage with a destruction staff ability, but actually kill the target with that skill, light attack, heavy, or wall of elements, or your death royalty, you will actually get magic back as well, so that helps towards our sustain. The second part of this passive is not important, of course, because we're not using an ice staff. Light armor. We are actually using 7 pieces of light at the moment, but you can change that if you prefer. This is to get the most out of the light armor passives we possibly can, but if you want higher resources, a little bit more resistances, you can of course go 1 medium and 1 heavy when it comes to the monster set, or you can just stick to this. It's your choice. But the way we're set up at the moment, this reduces the effectiveness of snares, so we're quite quick. This also reduces the cost of sprint, per piece worn, by the way. This increases your mag recovery, which helps with our sustain, obviously. This also reduces the cost of all your abilities by 14%, which is quite substantial, especially since we're using a very expensive skill. This will increase your resistances for spell resists, and this will increase your spell crit rating, but you have to have 5 pieces equipped for this, as you do with this one as well, which will increase your spell penetration by 4884. The pen cap for vet content is 18200. Enemies have 18,200 resistances. You want to get it down as much as possible. Removing resistances with buffs and debuffs, or adding penetration to you or your group or whatever, they stack together. They're the same thing effectively. If you can get the target down to 0, that's when you're going to do the most damage that you possibly can for your build, excluding other buffs and bonuses, of course. So we've got very, very high penetration. If you do choose to go 1 medium, you do want Windwalker and Athletics to reduce the cost of dodge roll, and of course to increase your stamina recovery. Heavy armor, of course, we don't have any heavy armor, but if you do choose to have 1 piece, you can of course get these 3 passives here, which will increase your resistances. This will help with health recovery and resource return if you get hit. And of course, you can get this to give you 2% extra health bonus. This is all up to you. We are 7 light on this on purpose, but if you want to, you can actually go 5-1-1, which is 1 heavy, 1 medium, 5 light, and you will get extra resources out of your Undaunted passives, which are here. So, any synergy you see in the game that is on the ground that prompts you, take it. It will give you a benefit no matter what. It will do damage, it will heal you, it will give you a shield, whatever it does is beneficial. At the same time, you will get resources back. There is your sustain for picking up free skills. Also, this is an increase to your health, magicka, and stamina by 2% for each type of armor worn. We get 2% bonus because we're wearing all light. If you do change that to 5-1-1, again, like I said a moment ago, 1 heavy, 1 medium, 1 light, you will alter your flat bonuses from your light armor, so your recovery will be less, your reduction to cost will be obviously less, so skills will be more expensive, but you will have higher pools. Technically, that does apply higher damage output, but that's only if you can sustain it. If you can't, stay with light. If you can, this is fine. You'll have more health. You'll have all the rest of it. Really, really good. Full out choice. Entirely up to you. We are high elf. Increases your survival while channeling abilities. Now, we don't have any channel cast abilities, do we? Yes, we do. We have a heavy attack. That will give us 5% reduction to damage while heavy attacking. Yes, of course, there's a multiplicative mitigation bonus, so it's not a flat 5%, but it will still give us a nice resistance bonus nonetheless as far as mitigation is concerned. Now, also, this is very important, if you use a class ability, you get 640 magicka or stamina back based on whichever is lowest. We get stam back because it's our lowest pool. Once every 6 seconds for using a class ability, we get stamina back. Now, if you are choosing to use a beast trap on the back bar, if you're not using one of the specific setups, then of course that will help you sustain that because it will give you stamina back all the time. Failing that, it just gives us more resources to be able to block, dodge, and sprint with sometimes if we need to. Really, really handy to kind of get that secondary bar back, because some people run really, really low, dodge rolling too much, and they have no idea how to get it back because we don't have a physical weapon to heavy attack with. This helps. We have max magic increase of 2k, and we have 258 spell damage. Highest spell damage bonus on any race whatsoever. High Elf and Dark Elf do actually have the same as this, and they do have both have a Magicka bonus, but the High Elf has a slightly higher one, plus the Dark Elf has stamina as well. However, flat out, highest one you can get. You can use any race you like. We have chosen it for these passives. You will have different passives if you choose a different race. All you have to do is consider what you gain or lose. Some may be better for you, some may be worse. Entirely up to you, but essentially, this can be played by any race at all. I know people that run Imperial with this and still do absolutely fine. Alchemy is essential. Most important passive in the game, in my opinion. 30% increased duration on potions. Now, we are using tripods, which give you health back, stamina back, and magicka back, because we don't need spell damage, because it's in our crit surge, and we don't need prophecy, because it's on our inner light. If you choose to take inner light on both bars and take crit surge off because you think your healer is going to keep you alive, then of course you can use spell pots because you won't have major sorcery. However, the tripods are amazing. You will get also, as well as getting back health, magic, and stamina, you will get magicka, stam, and health recovery. Activate your potion every single time it is ready. You'll have a 47-second uptime, but a 45-second cooldown. So you can have 100% uptime on your buffs from these potions. I can't say this any clearer. Potions are consumable buffs. Do not let your buffs run out. People that fail with most builds, 9 times out of 10 is because they don't use their potions. They treat it like other games where you only use your potion if you really need to. No, they have a full duration uptime. Keep them up. And if you are only popping potions when you've got like 5% magicka left, you are doing it wrong. Keep your resources up. Don't run out. Now we're going to get into the gear, the shiny stuff. Now there are options. If you are very new to the game and you are not necessarily accessing everything that you would like to, you can of course go with crafted gear. Now there is a chart for that on the website showing you what you can use if you want to. However, the sticker book is actually really nice because what they did is they introduced a feature where you can basically farm any gear at any level and then just craft it on a max level character again at the level you are. So, win-win. However, here are some options. Some of this you can just do dungeons. Some of it you can go into trials. The choice on which version you choose is up to you, but there are two substantial differences. One has extremely good single target and unmatched area of effect combined because of the way it is constructed. The other variation has much less area of effect, but much more single target. So it depends on the fight, and it depends on what kind of player you are as to which one you choose. But this is all going to be explained. So, let's go over the high single target and stupid AoE one first. Undaunted Infiltrator Lightning Staff, I'm sure you've seen this before. Now, the weapon damage and spell damage glyph on this bar outperform putting it on the back, because while you may have a higher uptime on your weapon and spell damage, you sacrifice your ability to fire your damage glyph, which we have here. We have a lightning glyph on this bar. The reason for that is obviously we're not using an infused weapon on the front. We want as much crit as we can get because we don't want to miss crit a heavy attack. While we're doing our heavy attacks, you're not going to fire that glyph over and over and over. It's one heavy attack, one glyph. Two heavy attacks, one glyph. If you're doing light attack spams, obviously that's much faster and you can use that glyph more accurately if you use an infused. We're not. So instead, we have that constant ticking damage with shot glyph, shot glyph, shot glyph, shot glyph, over and over and over and over because we can control it with our wall of elements. This can be controlled by our front bar rotation, and it works perfectly. So anyway, this has stamina, and weapon crit, which may, on the surface, seem useless. But we're taking it for the 5th bonus. The 2 stamina bonuses are very nice for us. Not only do we survive with our high resistances and ability to heal, but we sustain with our heavy attacks and all that good stuff, and we have a really nice stamp pool to be able to evade. Actually, most Magicka builds can't do that very well. They sacrifice a lot of that, normally under 9k stamina. We're sitting on almost 13k. We can block, we can dodge roll, we can do all that good stuff if we're in trouble. But when you use a Magicka ability on your front bar, by the way, this is front bar only, you will gain a buff for 10 seconds, which, yes, carries over. That buff will increase your light and heavy attacks by 1685. So we must use a magic ability on the front bar, which is fine because our front bar is covered. It's chock-a-block with stuff we need. And this will activate. Our light attacks are high anyway, but we're utilizing heavy attacks for our rotation. We are making sure we get back resources so we can reuse the mines. That is a win-win. Instead of just using it as a resource gain, we're using it as damage output for single target and splash, and this heightens it. And during off balance, this tiny buff stacks massively with a 70% increase that we get. So this is very strong indeed. You want that on the front bar staff, and you want it on your jewelry. You want Bloodthirsty twice and Infused once, with spell damage on all 3. Now, the monster set is more of Inferno. Obviously, it's Jeff, because Jeff is amazing. You can have this or Groftar. The choice is up to you, but this one actually did perform higher in most situations, especially single target. But if you want more area of effect, just because you are constantly in the face of the enemy and you've got loads and loads of ads surrounding you, then of course Groftar is absolutely fine. It's a bit easier to get as well. So, you want this on a helmet and shoulders. You can go 2 light if you want, but if you want to go 5-1-1, you can literally go 1 heavy and 1 medium. But you have to have the helmet and shoulders, divines on both. We are using Infallible Ether. Now, this can be gained via Vet or normal trials. You don't have to go on a Vet if you don't want to. It's exactly the same gear. There's no perfected version of it. It's exactly the same. You'll get a spell crit bonus twice. 2 crit bonuses, which is insane. One of them's on the 5-piece bonus, by the way. You also get Minor Slayer and a spell damage increase. Now, on the 5th piece, it's a double dip. You get extra crit, which is great. That's what we want. And your heavy attacks deal an additional 900 damage to enemies with a fully charged heavy attack. So the pop at the end, shock pulse, if you're looking at combat metrics, is where this boosts it. So this boosts the whole heavy attack, and this boosts the pop at the end. That's the purpose of the 5-piece bonus. Yes, as a free bonus, we apply minor vulnerability, increasing all damage done to that target by 5% for 10 seconds. But that's not what we want the set for. We'll take it because it's free, but we want the overall 5-piece bonus, not that. because we have so much lightning damage anyway, if we apply concussion, that applies minor vulnerability. So we've basically got a free minor vulnerability all the time for doing our rotations, and another free one just in case it doesn't fire. We aren't using it purposely for that. We're using it for the crit and the extra heavy attack damage, but we do, as a side effect, constantly have it. So no, nobody else needs to bring it. 5 pieces, by the way, all on the body. So simply put, Undaunted Infiltrator on the lightning staff and the jewelry, Aether on the whole body, and Jeff on the helmet and shoulders. Now, we are of course using a Maelstrom lightning staff with a shock glyph. Has to be infused. Yes, of course, the perfected version has a penetration bonus, but that's not going to be really affecting the build. So you can get this on normal, scrub the penetration bonus, and you won't see any difference at all, except for when you're on your back bar in ad pulls. Let's face it, you're not going to be on there for much longer than a couple of seconds because you're only applying buffs and dots. So it's not massively effective. For this particular build, it makes no difference as to whether you get normal or perfected. But your light and heavy attack damage is increased. So you've got your light attack and heavy attack bonuses up, obviously for Undaunted Infiltrator and Aether if you're using that version, but you've also got that if you're not. Bear in mind, of course, if you've got off balance already covered, swap it for a flame staff, so then you can get more out of that. However, that has been explained already in the skills. That is a situational choice. By the way, for those of you that thought Noble Duelist was a really, really good option and stronger than Undaunted Infiltrator because, look, the flat damage to light and heavies is higher, you're wrong. Because, on a dummy, this might look great. Read the small print. When you deal damage with a light or heavy attack in melee range, you get a 5-second buff. That is extremely ineffective for 99.9% of players. Because although this can perform in the face of the enemy, most people are more than 5 meters away, and they don't keep an eye on this. Plus, in mechanics where you do have to go ranged, you can't apply this anymore. You just lost a 5-piece bonus. Whereas this can apply all day long. Just saying. If you utilize this correctly, and you follow the rotation very clearly, and you are very good at keeping up your resources, rather than just over spamming abilities and thinking that you can press buttons really, really fast and do everything, slow your rotation down, you will get something like this. This is on the Iron Atronach with the buffs that are on that dummy. Now, bear in mind, Empower was changed. Empower now increases your heavy attack damage by 40%. So if your tank is in a really good mood and they are wearing Gallonway, they will grant you Empower all the time. So your light attacks and your heavy attacks will go up. Or if you have a Necromancer in your group applying Grasp, that will give you Empower as well. So you can actually get Empower as a group buff, and this is not on the dummy. However, we simulated that. If you would like to see how much damage you would get out of this exact setup, with Empower, you're looking at this. And yes, you can go a little bit higher. My rotation was a bit off. Now, the other option, the other swap out option, you don't have to change any skills, you don't have to change any champion points, you don't have to change any of your rotation. You can go with this. You can go with Sororia on your front bar. Lightning staff, by the way. Very specific. It has to be lightning. And you want Medusa jewelry. You also want Medusa chest. Now, you can do this in any order. You can have any pieces you want. You can even go with the legs or the feet or whatever. It's up to you. But definitely get the chest because it's got the highest resistances. So you can put Medusa on the chest and somewhere else. Then you change every other piece out to Sororia. You don't have to have perfected. You can get the normal one on normal difficulty. This will give you up to 520 extra spell damage if you stack inside of the circle that spawns after you direct damage. It will give you max magic spell damage, and it will give you minor slayer. So very similar to the basic stuff on Aether, given the spell damage and the minor slayer, but instead of having 2 crit bonuses, you have 2 max Magicka bonuses, so your crit is down. However, high spell damage increasing your skills. Medusa doesn't increase your heavy attack, it doesn't increase your max skill damage, it just gives you minor force. If you have a beast trap prior to this, you have it anyway. If you don't, this gives it 100% of the time. This buff here, just like the Undaunted Infiltrator, does carry over. So now you've got less crit, but more spell damage. Now you've got more crit, but less flat in terms of survival as far as your dodge and blocks and all that is concerned. So it's a balance in scales. We're tipping stuff over here. If you have this setup, you will do much, much more single target, but you will lack a lot of AoE because we don't now have Undaunted Infiltrator, we don't have Aether, we don't have those stack and bonuses to our heavies. Will they still be very, very strong? Yes, but this is pushing more of your skills rather than your resource gain abilities. So, if you do this instead, you are looking at this. And if you are granted Empower by your group, and this was a very bad rotation, I clustered it all at the end, it was a mess, you are looking at this. And I know there's people that sit there and naysay because they really want this build to not work as it's intended or as I demonstrate it, but I'm afraid it does. This dummy was in the middle of the friggin' room. No, it was not a demonstration of putting it up against the wall with 3 mines. This was done in the middle of the room. When I get to the rotation, you'll see that one rotation I spam, the other rotation I return resources. Next I spam, then return resources. Depends on your group, obviously, and your resource gain, but that is in the rotation. If you're being a smart ass, you can calculate how many mines there are. You'll see. So, the choices are there. You've got Undaunted Infiltrator setup, which is very, very popular. It's been used a hell of a lot. I would probably recommend that, to be fair, because a single target is way up there anyway, but you want the extra AoE. But if you are desperate to get as high a single target as possible, you look at 92k plus without Empower. You look at 97 to 100k with it. It's fucking insane. This got buffed to shit with this patch, and it is still very, very successful across the board for people that are already using it, because none of your rotation has to change, and technically neither does any of your gear. So, I'm going to go over champion points, then I'm going to explain the rotation very clearly. 72 into Ironclad to reduce the amount of direct damage you take. 64 and 64 in Hardy and Elemental to buff out your flat resistances, if you like, or mitigation versus all damage types. 51 into Thick Skin to reduce the amount of dot damage you take. And of course, we are not using any stam abilities per se, but if you do choose to use a Beast Trap on the Undaunted Infiltrator version of the setup, you can of course get the cost down if you break free. 19 points in a Crit Recovery. Yes, that does mean that our Crit Surge, it heals us more. And we've got the Res passive. If you do res someone, you take less damage. Make sure your Boundless Storms is up. Make sure your Crit Surge is up. Make sure something is being damaged while you res, and you'll heal throughout the process. 44 into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 75 in Tenacity to return more when we heavy attack, which is essential for the build. 75 into Recovery, again, to increase the recovery. 72 into Tumbling to reduce the cost of dodge roll. We've got 4 points into Shadow Ward to reduce the cost of block, but and it's essentially this opens up the Treasure Hunter passive, which is on every single build because obviously you want more loot, especially with the sticker book. 61 into Elfborn to increase crit damage and crit healing. 56 to increase all Magicka damage types done. 3 points into Spell Erosion. We do not need much into Penetration at all. But we'll take 3 points because we're not going to put them anywhere else. 35 into Staff Expert to increase our light and heavies. 40 to increase our direct damage, so our mines do actually benefit from this, as do our light attacks. And 75 points into Thermaturge to increase all damage over time. Not to mention, of course, the reason it's 75 points and not 72 isn't so we can be really nitpicky about the 0.4% because it doesn't actually do anything. But we want 75 points to unlock this passive, which means all off-balance enemies will make us do 10% more damage to them. Very, very important indeed. Now, the rotation is very, very simple. Keep up your Crit Surge, keep up your pet, and keep up your Boundless Storms. Activate the pet to start with, and then you're ready to go. So, Lightning on the ground, light attack, Boundless Storms, light attack, Wall of Elements, swap bars. On your front bar, light attack to get that glyph fired with the mines. Heavy attack, mines. Heavy attack, mines again. Now, you've got two choices here. If you're low on resources, heavy attack, then pet. If you're high on resources, light attack, then pet. And swap bars. So, before it was only 2 mines in the rotation, now it's 3 if you can get away with it. If you like the old one, stick to the old one, you'll be just fine. When you get back to the back bar, lightning, light Crit Surge this time, light wall swap. Light mines, heavy, mines. Heavy, mines, heavy, pet, or light pet. It's entirely up to you. Depends on your rotation, depends on how good you are. So, light mines, heavy, mines, heavy, mines, heavy, pet swap. Keep it simple if you have to. Now, when it comes to very, very, very high recovery situations, if you have Hollow Fang in your group, especially if you have 2, because you're never going to run out, on your front bar, you can literally do this. Light mines, 4 times, and then pet swap. Now, if the target is under 50% health, your pet is useless for her buff now. She will still do very good damage, but you don't need to apply her buff ever again. So in that situation, light attack mines 5 times, or if you're doing your sustain rotation, you want to go light attack mines, heavy, mines, heavy again, mines, swap. You can do 2 heavies or 3 heavies depending on how much resources you have at the time. Usually I do 2, but if you are good with your rotations, you can get away with 3. The choice is yours. If that's too confusing, keep it very simple. Boundless or crit surge every rotation. It's one then the other, one then the other, one then the other. Lightning, light buff, light wall swap, light mines, heavy, mines, heavy, pet swap. Lightning, other buff, wall, swap. Keep that up 100% of the time, never change it. You don't have to worry about the light spamming, you don't have to worry about your resources, just keep that rotation up 100% of the time. When you're really, really good at it, that's when you can switch things up. If you are really good at it, again, you want one rotation with spammables, and then you want your off-balance rotation, keep an eye on the target, keep an eye on off-balance, you want your off-balance one to be the one that you do the heavies on. So you can alternate, one spamming, one heavy, one spamming, one heavy. Again, if it's too complicated, or you can't manage your resources properly now because you're not keeping on top of off-balance, then, of course, stick to the heavy attack version all day long, and you will still do absolutely bloody fine. Now, if you want to see what that looks like, even from a basic perspective, you're basically doing this. Have your pet up. Make sure your resistance is running. And you do this. Keep an eye on the burst and the combat metrics on the top, by the way. Mines, mines, mines. Pet swap. Buff. Wall. Swap. Then you get your heavies in. Now, on the rotation for the dummy, obviously, you do start off with off-balance at the very beginning, so you have to start lining up a bit when you get through the rotation, but eventually you'll end up with off-balance, which should land about now, and that's when your sustain starts coming in. So here's your heavy, during off-balance. Big, big heavy there, 39k, and so much resources back all at once. So how you deal with that is up to you. You can do 3 mines on the front bar with 3 heavies, you can do 2 with 2 heavies, depends on how well you are adapting to the build itself, but it can be done very, very simply. You don't have to make it really complicated with the spams at the beginning and the resource return afterwards. With 2 alternate rotations, you can literally keep it up like this. Nice and simple. Heavy again, swap bars, rinse, repeat. You don't have to be complicated about it. That's just if you're advanced. The written guide will show both versions of the rotation, the very easy side and the more advanced side. Depends on what type of player you are. But just to finish this part off, remember I said about the mines earlier? About how you can place them under anything 2 at a time? Look at my cursor. My cursor or crosshair is between his feet. You can see the circle. The middle of the circle is where his feet are. Watch. 2 mines. Guaranteed. This dude again. Same applies. So we'll put the cursor between his feet. We'll make sure he's in the middle of the circle. Fire. 2 mines. Big target dummy. Aim for his feet. Whether you're up close, aiming for his feet, or long distance, aiming for his feet. Just make sure the cursor is central with the circle. 2 mines. Gone off. Now we'll go for a trick shot. This dude over here is on a collision box. It's very awkward, so obviously that can mess up, but we'll try and get this between his feet. That's 1. Boom! 2 of them. Beautiful. What you need to do is you need to get it between their central point between their feet. It doesn't matter how big or small the target is. If they're tiny, you can still get away with it. If they're huge, you can still get away with it. So even, I mean, this is a very different dummy altogether, but this guy here. We'll place him over here. Make sure he's green so he can be hit. Look, feet. His grounded point here. Aim between his legs. 2 at once. Now, if you mess it up, you'll do something like this. And you'll get 1. Don't do that. Aim between the feet. Now, when I said about 3 going off at once, this is really simple. There are stairs and boxes and all manner of different things at once going off in the game that you can actually manipulate to your advantage. Some people use it to pull ads around corners, so line of sight them. Other people can use it like this. Now, that is 3. This doesn't work. This, however, does. See? Stuck on the wall. Here, this corner here, stuck on the wall. Now, how does that work? Watch this. If your tank puts ads near the wall and you aim, kind of at his feet, but still, the wall is in the way, all 3 just went off. Simple as that. Same can apply to stuff like this corner here. If they line up even remotely close to each other, you can't see the third because they're overlapping, all 3 will go off. So, 2 you can get done all the time, and if your tank is good, you can make sure 3 goes off. but your group needs to work together. It's not a case of I'm tank, I tank stuff, you DPS stuff. No, work against or work with each other's builds. Off balance will help put this one sustain up so you can spam more often, for example. That's a build on my channel. Go check it out. A tank that knows what they're doing can place stuff in a really opportune kind of position so you can take advantage of your builds. If you want the most out of your DPS in your group, don't tell them to slap the dummy all day long and that's it. Try and position stuff so that you can get the most out of it. We're an AoE build. We want as much stuff clustered up as possible. And if things are clustered up against the wall, so be it. Yeah, some bosses do that, some bosses don't. But plenty of ad pulls do. And if you want your speed runs, ad pulls are where it all counts. Because the quicker you get rid of them, the more time you've got on the boss. Now it's time for fashion. So, first of all, we are, of course, using the same as before. It's on the website, but just in case you missed it, we're using a glass heavy helmet. We are using a Trinomac light robe, which is very nice. Using a heavy Daedric shoulders. A heavy Daedric shoulders. Good job there. Good English. Horned Dragon gloves. They're light, by the way. Dramathra light belt. No pants! Don't need them because they're hidden by the robe. It's fine. And, of course, we've got Dramathra feet. That really doesn't matter because you can't really see them anyway, but you've got a little bit of blue hint there. Why not? And the staff, of course, is Ebon Shadow because let's face it, although there's no best in the game, we all know that the Ebon Shadow staff is the best looking thing in there. And, of course, we are using a Silver Dawn staff on the back. Now, the colors we're using are actually Julianus White, and we're also using the new black, which is not essential. I mean, you can use the Gate Black or Obsidian, what the hell is it called? Falmor Black and Obsidian Black if you want. They're much lighter, but there is a new black in the game. The blackest black of them all, Void Pitch. Very nice indeed. So, those are the options for fashion. So, hopefully it helped. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build. This has been very successful for years now, and is actually one of, if not the most popular build in ESO. That's a fact. Check the numbers on all the builds and put them together. Anyway, all the fun aside, this does work very, very well. Yes, I know there's naysayers out there, but let's face it, they haven't even tried. Practice makes perfect. Get your practice in, go into content and smash it to bits. This is built for content, so enjoy it. Anyway, first of all, thank you very much for watching. I hugely appreciate support. If you are not subscribing on YouTube, please do hit that button. It is free. Also, if you want to help support outside the channel, first of all, you can share the video. But there are links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website xynodegaming.com. I have an Instagram page as well, and of course I live stream on Twitch every single day from 10 PM UK time onwards, except for Wednesdays, unless I say otherwise on Twitter. Sometimes I get too busy and can't stream, but 9 times out of 10 it's every single day, but Wednesdays. Once again, thank you very much for watching and enjoy the build. Bye bye.